Italian exchange student who was lived with Mike and Charlene. And then there was a whole lot of stories posted on Facebook. And so the family gave me a list of those, and I've just chosen some of those. Okay, start over. Okay, start over. That's all right. Okay, we good? Is that better for everybody? Great.
More bass.
More bass.
More cowbell.
Does it? Okay. Seems like we're good. And so I'll share some of these stories, and then there will be a time, if any of you want to share something with the family and everybody else about Mike that could be said. But also you can know that after today, if there's memories that come to you, you can put them on the Facebook page or contact the family or whatever, so that continues. So let me first offer a prayer. Let us pray. God, we're here to acknowledge an incredible life, generous heart, creative man, wonderful spirit, Mike Ray. Pray that your spirit be with us to open us up to the depth and breadth of his influence on all of us and beyond. This we pray in Christ's name. Amen. Amen. Okay, so I'm going to recite the 23rd Psalm, and probably be familiar to everybody, but it's important to remember this was a psalm that was composed about 3,000 years ago. It had probably a little harp accompaniment, but probably had some percussion. Nobody really knows what Hebrew music sounded like 3,000 years ago, but I'm sure it must have been very powerful. And it's a very simple piece, beautiful. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely, goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That's for you, Mike. Goodness and mercy followed you everywhere you went. Okay, so here's a little background on his life that a lot of you know. Some of it was in the obituary, some received from the family. Mike was born in Shreveport, Louisiana, on November 11th, 1943. The family eventually came west, settled in Goleta in 1955, back in the pioneer days of Goleta. He was part of the first graduating class at San Marcos High School in 1961. By that time, he had found a life passion, drums and music. And he began drumming and playing and teaching. Charlene remembers the first 7 years of their marriage. He played out at a lot of clubs in town. But a key decision in his life was to take a lot of his calling and his passion and to open Mike's Drum Shop in 1970, which changed the lives of a lot of people. I think a lot of you are here today. Of course, that store later moved to Figueroa, then De La Vina. He and Charlene raised Michael and Carolyn, and then 4 grandchildren, and then there was also the brothers who were here. 23 years ago, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. 6 years ago, Mike and Charlene moved to Texas to be close to his family. The last 6 years were not easy, but Mike's spirit never dimmed. He died this past November 9th. There was a church service in Texas near where he was, and today is a time for the family to be with all of you, to celebrate Mike and to affirm what a great life he lived. I'll tell you a little bit about my connection with Mike. First time I met Mike was in a hospital room at Cottage Hospital. His father, Billy Ray, I don't know how many of you knew Billy Ray. Billy Ray was one independent spirit. He always wore cowboy boots and a hat. He had a strong independent spirit, and he was in failing health. So I was pastor at the Goleta Presbyterian Church at the time. I was there with the family, and Mike came in, but Mike and I didn't really connect at that time, which I didn't even notice at the time, but that wasn't important. It was just to be with his dad. His dad died soon thereafter, and I don't know how long ago, 6 months, a year, 2 years later, suddenly Mike showed up at the door of the church, just smiling, full of light, And it's just started coming every Sunday. I know that some first running and then later walking. The short shorts, I've never seen shorts that short. His legs were always tan. Always had a tank top, right? Often had the earbuds. And if at some point somebody put a stroller in front of him, right? And he walked that baby for, I don't know, but yeah, okay.
Girl was the baby in the stroller.
All right, all right. So it seemed like every time I would drive down to the church or go anywhere else, there Mike just beaming either on his own or with a stroller. And I think so many people that lived out in our neighborhood just got to know him by the sight, not just of his physical presence, but of his spirit, because his spirit is shown through him. So, excuse me. What I'd like to do now is read a letter from Carolyn that she wrote. Where's Carolyn? There we go. This is something that was shared at the service previously. Dads are someone to look up to, someone to follow, someone to admire, someone to be proud of, and someone to cry with. Someone to learn from, and someone to respect, someone to listen to, and someone to talk to. Someone to try and impress, sometimes rebel against, and someone, most of whom, to share everything this beautiful, amazing, blessed life has to offer. I am so incredibly grateful and honored that I had all of this and so much more with my dad. He was my hero, and I was his biggest fan. To say I loved my dad would be an understatement, and to say I'm going to miss him would be an even greater understatement. I cannot even begin to imagine my life without him in it. So for the last time, I thank you, Daddy, for always being there for me, for showing me the way, for believing in me, and encouraging me to dream. Thank you for being such an inspiring presence in my life. Dad's love for his family could not be measured. His love was unconditional, and that is something I will cherish from his character and carry with me forever. It's wonderful. I'm going to read a letter from Sabrina, but anybody else in the family want to say a word? No need to, but what's that?
When you're done.
Wait, okay, remind me, somebody remind me. Okay, so Sabrina was an exchange student who lived with you all for a year?
3 months.
Oh, 3 months, okay, but it sounded like it really became a wonderful
I
friendship.
know.
So this is what Sabrina wrote from Italy. Dear Charlene, Carolyn, dear Jamie, and dear members of the family, I want to express to you my sympathy and my deep sadness. I'm very sorry not being with you today. She's got great English. But if there's some grammar wrong, we're not going to worry about it. It's a second language for her. Mike and Charlene host me in their wonderful family as an exchange student in 1993. Despite my English knowledge was quite basic, in a short time, I fell in love with my American parents. I was back twice as I really miss them. I've always missed them and still do. Now I'm 48 years old, and thanks to Mike and Charlene, I lived one of the best experiences of my life, and I will be thankful forever. I have so many memories, but I never ever saw Mike upset or in a bad mood. If I close my eyes and I go back in time, I can see him coming back home in the morning from his running and getting ready for work, or calling Malia, the cat, for feeding her, or doing the laundry in the evening while we were watching TV, or laughing loudly and in such a funny way for some old movie. His eyes were always full of love for his amazing wife. As soon as she was back from work, he was opening a bottle of champagne with a strawberry sometimes. Mike in the drum shop, how many times he talked to me about the dishwallah. I loved him very much for his happiness, his way to be present and careful in a discreet way. I've been blessed in life, and I've had plenty of great moments so far, but I lived with Mike, the funniest one. I was in Santa Barbara in September 2005 for my third time. I wanted to impress my friends, sending them an incomprehensible email full of slang. Mike helped me, of course. He was a teacher in this, and I could easily hear him laughing while I was trying to breathe and dry my tears. Yes, Mike, everything was tubular. Weather was mundane. You were a trip, and Charlene was a space cadet. Stay steady, Eddie. Okay. There was another super cool special moment I lived and made me understand what a unique couple I found. We were in Palm Springs, and one evening I put some music, and we started to dance. That was something I never did with my real parents, and apparently can seem very normal, but to me, we found a different way to show how good we were feeling together. I have plenty of images, sounds, perfumes of my life with Mike and Charlene that I could write a book. They are present and alive in my heart, and they always will be. Dear Rays, despite not having seen you for years and the distance that separated us, you constantly remain in my thoughts. Today, you celebrate a great man who I've been honored to meet, but I will only have a regret. I didn't manage to introduce him to my daughters. So Mike, next time we talk, don't freaky dick on me. Okay? Forever love, Sabrina. Okay. So, from the many testimonies that came on the Facebook page, all are wonderful. I just picked a few to share with everybody today. And if you're here, I hope I'll mention the name of the person who wrote the comment, and please acknowledge that you're here. Any ghosts? I have so many fond memories at the drum shop, too many to tell. My favorite time spent with Mike were when we would be out for his daily walk. He would stop and talk with me at many of the homes I painted in Goleta. Many great stories he would tell. A great man who will always be in my heart. And I guess what we experienced, no matter where he was right there with people, bringing joy. Mike Vasquez. Sorry to hear about his condition. I definitely have many memories from working and hanging out at that shop for years. The ones I love most were what I call the deal-em days, playing cribbage. His infectious smile, and of course the space between his two front teeth, and the laughter shared. I would not be the same person had I not grown up going to the shop. Some of the best times of my life and lessons were learned at Mike's drum shop. Sometimes you needed to have to touch skin to hang there, but most of all, it was the right place to go and hang with the brotherhood in a fun and loving environment. Lastly, I love the Christmas parties. I'll always remember those. He made us all feel like family, because we were. Love and miss Mike Ray. Please give him a big hug for us all. Tommy Soto. Mike was my first drum teacher. I was in middle school and was just learning how to play my first paradiddles. I always remember during my first lesson, Mike turned on the speaker system in the studio and blasted Holiday by Green Day. He turned to me and said, "Try and keep up." He began playing the iconic floor tom beat for the song and had me learn by watching him. We played through the majority of American Idiot in the following months. He showed me what it is like to have pure joy and passion for playing the drums and lit a fire in me to never stop improving. Thank you, Mike. Dan Moore. I got to work there for Mike for 5 years. Besides renaming his staff, things like Needle Nose and Duckworth, he constantly had us laughing with all of his favorite sayings like, "Hey, do we all appreciate Mike Ray?" And the answer is, I'll just read it, I don't know, is a duck's ass watertight? Pardon my French. We're just going to testify to Mike today. But my all-time favorite moment, and something that I can still crack up about to this day, was when a customer walked in and Mike turned around and said, "I've got to go and do a lesson. Just scream if you need something." What a guy. Grateful for everything he did for me. George Pendergast. I met him when I was 5, so more stories than room for, really. He was my first teacher, mentor, boss. I learned more by watching him and listening to him than anything. Everyone got a second, third, fourth chance. Competition was good. It lets you be the best. The more you trust people, the less they'll steal. Eat lots of pizza and lie about it. He always knew if you weren't okay and did all he could to fix it. This is a great example of how to be to others. On a lighter note, one of my favorite things was the yearly how many times he had to wear pants. It wasn't very often, I guess, right? Love that man. Thank you for all the chances, Mike. A couple more. This is from Mike Davidson. I came in there one day with a Tama catalog and told Mike this was the one I wanted. And he just smiled and he said, "Come with me." In the back was the exact kit I wanted. And he told me that a guy came in and sold it, so he'd saved it for me. It was brand new. He had already picked out a snare that sounded perfect with it and was my style. Still have that kit today. He just knew because he knew all of us on a personal level. I was so stoked and then explained to him I did not have the money yet. He smiled and did not care. I told him I did not have cymbals to go with it. He pulled a ride, 2 crashes and hats out from behind it and said, "These are the ones you keep banging on every weeknight?" Yes, they were, and he threw a bag in with it. I then explained the money problem again, and he just smiled. I walked out that day with everything for $130 down, and he told me just to pay when whatever I can. I never think I even paid down there and explained my problem. I'm sorry. I never think I ever paid someone back so diligently in my life. I broke a cymbal in practice one afternoon before a show and ran down there and explained my problem. I had $20 and said anything will do for the show and I will bring it back tomorrow. Again, he told me, get the cymbal I had been eyeing and grab it. I handed him the $20 and he smiled it back to me and said, "You need to eat tonight and gas money?" I did, and he threw in 2 pairs of sticks and said, "Pay me when you can and have fun tonight." I walked out with the cymbal I wanted and the sticks I needed for my show and a handshake. Every time I broke something, we would fix it together, going through the parts boxes and crates in the back. One time, I was like $3 short on some sticks, and he said, "Your name is Mike, right?" And gave me a 20% discount. His name was Mike. And it was like, look, now you don't owe me anything. And the last story that I want to read is one from James Antunes. Okay, this is, and it's a little bit longer, but it's worth reading. Mike's drum lessons were life lessons, and the shop was a sanctuary for many of us. I guess I can tell a story that I promised to Mike I would never tell. I was raised by a single mom on tips from Joe's Cafe. My mom worked double shifts at Joe's and El Cielito. My pop left us for a musician's life on the road when we were young, and it was a very hard time for single moms. Mike enabled my mom and I to make a drum set purchase on time with a portion after the down payment to go on the card. This was my very first extension of credit, and the card became the way I was able to get the tools and gear I needed to start working as a musician. I know the card had its own set of stories, and even bad ones at that, as some straight out took advantage, sadly. I was so respectful for the opportunity that I would never miss a payment, and paid when I told him I would. He would joke when I came in as he would ask, "When are you going to ring my chimes?" with a wink and a way of reminding me that I had a stick balance on my card. He had bestowed in me a trust, and I was learning to build integrity under his wing. I got a real steady gig at 18 playing a club called the Take One Lounge following Scott Blair's tenure. I needed a car to get to the gig. At that time, Tony Marino, Scott Blair, Byron James, Ken Burris were all driving vans with their drums. There was no way my mom or I could muster up a credit rating then. I remember being heartbroken that we were not going to swing the deal for the van that was available. I was at the shop telling the bros that I did not know how Mike overheard, and he knew me and my mom well over the years. So he was telling these other guys that Mike overheard. Later, Mike pulled me aside and told me that he had seen and recognized how diligent I had been with my Mike's Cards payments, and that if I promised to always be on time with my payments, he would co-sign my van loan. I know Squid remembers my yellow Ford van. Mike knew my family situation and took a chance on a young man in a selfless lesson of trust, guidance, and love he helped me with alone. He made me absolutely promise not to tell anyone, and certainly none of the other young drummers. It was our secret until now, and I am proud to say back then, I paid off my car note early, never left a balance on Mike's drum card, and even to this day, 45 years later, I have never bounced a check or missed a payment for anything.
Wow.
Mike, you inspired the very goodness in us all and unconditionally welcomed even the most tattered souls. With your light, many transitions were made or lives turned around. Your work in the community alone is worthy of a hero's parade. I will play in that parade when I am asked. I will sing and play a mighty drum, and that the heavens may hear with a welcome, loving arms, and a place in the band. I love you, Mike Ray. You are so much more than every note you've given to us all. Yes, if we were to add up each note you have ever played on any drum, and add the notes of ours to the notes that inspired us from you, I'm sorry, there's a beautiful thing, let me say again. If we were to add up each note you have ever played on any drum, and add the notes of ours that your notes inspired, we love you that many notes. Beautiful testimony. So, What an amazing guy. Charlie. So this is the time for anybody else that wants to share anything.
Mike and I met in high school in 1960 when he was a senior and I was a sophomore. He stole my heart immediately, and on September 6, 1962, he proposed and we were married June 30th of 1963. The odds were not in our favor for our marriage succeeding, as we were both so very young. Our parents really didn't like the idea. Through the years, we worked together and supported each other, and while we didn't create an empire, we created a happy and loving home. Mike gave me the two greatest gifts he could, a son, Michael, and a daughter, Carolyn. Like all couples, we had our ups and downs, but after 59 years, we made it, and he will be in my heart forever. He was an amazing husband and a father. Until we meet again, I will love you to the moon and back.
I've got some notes on my phone, so maybe a second here. Focus. Hey, first things first. There's so many people here today that I know we're trying to catch everybody and see everybody. Do me a favor, take a picture of your neighbors with your table, everything, and post that to the Facebook page so we have some good memories of everybody that was here, because this is obviously incredible. So thanks to everybody that traveled, near, far, from all over the world. This is a true honor, and it's amazing to see everybody that's here. Special thanks to Joe Fink for wearing shorts. You do. Because nobody would be, well, he wouldn't have been wearing shorts today. Not going to take a whole lot of time just because I know there's a lot of great stories out there to tell. But as we've said once, we'll say many times, he was a giver, and the last several years have been really tough to watch him fade away. But he gave us everything. He gave us love unconditionally, and you're all here because of that. And I'm anxious to hear all the rest of the stories. The Facebook stories were amazing. They were really hard to get through those last few days with him. Really tough, but I did read all of them, and he did hear them, even though he wasn't real responsive. I know that he heard them. I mean, he gave all the time, every day, except for when it came to inventory. And then it was either some cash or fill out the card. Put your name, address, and phone number, fill out the 3 X's. I know, with the index card thing, I watched it many times. I even remember sitting in the bug when he was doing collections on probably people that aren't here. I do remember sitting in the bug and watching him walk up to the door, and he would knock, and I'd see someone kind of, I don't know, and pulling the pockets out like I've got no money. And, I know what's going on up there. But yeah, he gave, and for him it was all about giving and smiling and making sure that everybody was taken care of. I think overall the lesson here. We always reflect on when there's a death in the family and our friends or whatever, but I think the biggest lesson here is to remember his love and his giving and try every day to integrate, well, what would Mike do? Because he would smile and he would just move on. So, thanks again for showing up. Enjoy. Let's hear some more stories. Well, we love you, Dad.
I'm Mark. I'm Mike's younger brother, and my brother, our other youngest brother, Tom, is right there. Say hi, Tom. So I had a tough 2018. I lost my wife 42 years after battling 6 years with stage 4 ovarian cancer in March, and then 8 months later, my brother passes away, and then 3 weeks after that, I decided to break my neck. So I'm hoping 2019 is going to be a little filled with, it already is. My granddaughter Tessa right there just turned 1. So that was pretty exciting. I know that many of you actually know my brother better than I do. We spent much more time with him. So I decided to write this so that I could hopefully hold it together. So Mike was 12 years old when I was born. My mother had a few miscarriages after Mike was born, thus the large span of years. Tom was born 3 years later. Mike was an idol growing up. He used to call me Tutti Frutti Cupcake as a child. I used to go into his room to sleep at night as a toddler. His room was more fun than mine because he had a drum set and bongos. He actually put a lock on the outside of his door so that when he went to high school during the day, it was up high, and he would lock it so I couldn't get into his room as a toddler and play his stuff. I was known as a hyperchild, as the diagnosis for ADHD wasn't known when I was a child. By 7 years old, the school psychologist wanted to put me on tranquilizers that were in cookies. Mike told my parents that he had an outlet for all my kinetic energy. So at 7 years old, I began taking weekly lessons, and Mike brought me and Tom a few drums to practice. Tom and I looked forward to those lessons so much, as I could read music thanks to those lessons, and my mother's patience with daily 1 to 2 hour practice sessions. I was elevated to the advanced band in the 7th grade. Mike and Charlene were always so awesome to us boys growing up. Having Mike show up at my Little League games or my concerts was always exciting. Never to miss a chance at self-promotion. While I was in the jazz band at Dos Pueblos High School, Mike would surprise me with a new set to play at concerts. I would bring the hardware, and he would have taped Mike's drum shop cards on the shelves. After the final song, he would come up, congratulate me, and then sell, sell, sell. Mike was always proud of my accomplishments and was kind to let me call him at random times to tell him about various parties that I DJ'd, what our kids were doing, and he was always supportive and truly concerned about my wife's cancer battle. He was a lover of life, family, friends, and his students. His legacy will live on through countless drummers who found their inner rhythm through Mike's thoughtful encouragement. It is a testimony to his life's work that you are all here today. I know that he is smiling down with my parents, my wife, and so many others, and he's probably jogging in shorts that are too short all over the streets of heaven.
Fred Hicks. I used to know Charlene in my typing class in the 12th grade, and Mike Ray in my Spanish class in the 10th grade. They were such great people, and I don't have a whole lot to say, but we know when we all go, we're all going to miss one another, but that's the way life tends to be. Just have to move on, I guess. How come it's not coming through like it should to sound?
It's all good. It's all good.
There you go.
Hey, you good.
And that's what I can think of, except that in regard to anybody, you know, age has nothing to do with it. You can go right here now, you know. I won't get cremated where I go, and most people are getting anyway. Okay, I have nothing else much to say.
Someone else like to come forward. Yeah.
I can just stand right here and y'all can hear me. Probably I don't even need a microphone. Can you hear me now? Okay. I've been very blessed to have been a part of this family. Mike married my cousin Charlene, who's like a sister to me. So it's always been Mike and Charlene. And you know how they always say that every good man has a good woman behind him? Well, that's the truth here. And I don't want to wait until we're doing this, either for me or for you or for somebody else in here, for us to all get back together to tell you how much I love you. What a great mother you were. What a great wife you were to Mike and caregiver. That is not an easy place to be. It's a very difficult part. You did it with grace and love, and I admire you tremendously for that. I know it wasn't easy. They moved to Dallas. We lived right around the corner from them. My husband passed away about, 10, 11 years ago, Scott Slickton. And we lived around the corner from Mike and Charlene, and so she was like her house and my house were the nucleus of the family, where all the poker games were held. It was like deal 'em. And Mike was such a great storyteller. He always made us laugh. And Charlene was always in the kitchen. Behind every one of those Mike's Drum Shop Christmas parties was Charlene in the kitchen. And I just want to tell you, sister, that I love you so much. And he couldn't have had a better life or a better wife than he had with you.
Hi, my name is Ed Soto. I actually raised my hand when you read Tommy Soto's. Tommy is my son. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it here because he is taking a test for his CPA license up at Cal Poly. But he started drumming when he was in 6th grade at Kellogg School. Thank you, Mr. Peterson, wherever you are. Music started to become inspiring to him, and then he took a summer session before he went to GV with Jim Mui from Santa Barbara City College. And my wife and I went to the final recital that they had this summer before he was going to go into 7th grade at GV. And he got selected to play the drum part for the music that they played. And they finished their session with Born to Be Wild. And my wife and I were shocked what we heard. It's like, where did this come from? We had no idea because he was not coming home practicing. That afternoon, we ran down to Mike's Drum Shop and bought our first drum set for Tommy that we still have today. PC something. It's not very good, but it was good enough for him. I just want everybody to know Mike was such an inspiration for Tommy. He went on to play at GV for 2 years. He played the quads, the toms. And then he went to Dos Pueblos High School, played in the jazz band there, marching band, was the drum drum captain. Did all the summer sessions with DP, getting them ready. And then he went on to the Cal Poly. I'm sorry, before, thank you, Mr. Rose. I know you're here, Les Rose, DP Jazz. He then went on to play at Cal Poly for 4 years. Also, again, in the drums section. He also went on to do 2 tours of duty, as I call it, with DCI, the Academy. It's pretty tough, like 30, 35 locations in about a month and a half, traveling on the bus throughout the entire United States. I asked him, how's it going? He said, well, after 3 weeks traveling on the bus at night to get to our next destination, some of the individuals start questioning why they're doing this, but he loved it. He would come home from school, he would practice for 2 hours. That was, and my wife and I were saying, he's got it wrong, but no, he had it right. It was in his blood. That's what inspired him then to move on to continue working with school. I just want to let you know, Mike, I know you're up there. I know you're playing drums for everybody up there where you are, and you've just been an inspiration. My son would be done taking his lessons with Mike, and I would ask him, what did the master teach you today? And he would always talk about the paradiddles. But anyways, thank you, Mike.
Wow, Ed, great to see you, and what a great story about Tommy and all the kids. And by the way, Tommy also has that business sense that he contacted me and said, listen, I need donations for the DCI. Could you do something for me? So I donated $150 and got a t-shirt. So we're all good there. I've got a story about Mike Ray wearing pants.
No way.
And it wasn't a wedding. So here's how it goes. First of all, I was fortunate enough to get the La Colina band director position in 1993. And before, as I was preparing for that job, my mentor and the retiring director, J.B. Vanderark, said to me, okay, there's a couple of people in town that are going to be helping you out. One is this great trombone player, and if anyone remembers the late David Hartman, one is the David Hartman, he's going to come and help you with your low brass, and the other one is Mike Ray, and he's going to help you with your drummers. And I'm, processing everything, and I said, okay, great, these guys are going to help me. Well, first day of my first day at La Colina, here comes Mike Ray in the shorts and the tank top, and I'm from New York. I dress. And okay, here it is. And he showed up that day, and I'm thinking it was once a week. It might have been more than that, but consistently, once a week, twice a week. And I found out that, Mike, what are you doing on the other days? I'm going to the other schools. So the other band directors that are here and students that are here from all the other schools probably remember the day, that one day out of the week, that Mike came to their school. If La Colina was Monday, La Cumbra might have been Tuesday, on and on and on. And he did that consistently. At the end of my first year, I found out that there was a thing in the Santa Barbara School District called a Distinguished Service Award. And it was meant mainly for teachers and a few peripheral people involved in the school that went above and beyond the call of duty in their regular job. And I'm thinking to myself, distinguished service? This guy volunteers like at every school, like at every day. And JB had told me that he had been doing it for him as well, and JB was there for like 30 years. I'm going, this guy should get a Distinguished Service Award. So I did something very radical. I nominated someone that had no direct connection to the Santa Barbara School District. And they're looking at me, what is this? And so I had to write this full, long nomination, description, why this person should get this and everything like that. And they were completely sold and hooked on him. And Mike got the Distinguished Service Award in 1993. By the way, I never got that award. I was in the district for 30 years, and I never got that award. But Mike got the award, and I do want to tell you, he was, first of all, I hope the family remembers that, okay? And there was a certificate. You might still have it, you might not. It was back then. You might remember it, okay? That's so great. But I want to tell you, I did get something out of it. I got a free dinner. There was a big banquet. There was a big banquet for the Distinguished Service Award people, and Mike was there. Guess what he wore? Long pants. He wore his long pants. I remember, the nominee at that time, they might have cut back because of, cutbacks, but in those days, the nominee got to go to the banquet and sit with the person that you nominated. So I was at the banquet with Mike, and I want to tell you, I remember it to this day, he really enjoyed himself. He really was touched with the award, especially when they were announcing who got this and who got that, and all these great distinguished people that won the award. And I'm sitting there, I'm going, that might have been radical, but I'm really glad that I did this. I'm really glad. And as the years went on and on and on and on and on, I think back, man, no one deserved that award more than Mike Ray. So I'm so glad that happened. It was a great memory. And one more quick thing. I still have his Mike Ray's drum packet with all of the rudimentary exercises and the reading exercises. I have the packet. I still use the packet for my Santa Ynez beginning drum students. His packet lives on, and Mike lives on. Thanks so much.
Oh, man, I'm terrible at this.
Hey, John, are those zip-offs so they're shorter?
I'm gonna do the best I can. I'm terrible at this. I love Mike. Okay, listen, I'm gonna just bear with me. Mike gave me an opportunity. I was at a low point in my life. I went bankrupt. I had some physical problems. I couldn't play drums. I thought I'm gonna just start over. I'm gonna move somewhere beautiful. I came here with no job, knew nobody, nothing. Mike gave me a job, and he said, "I got a studio for you," and it was unbelievable. I worked there 12 years. I talked to him, 4 or 5 times a week. I called him the Walking Man. I say, "Hey, Walking Man, how you doing?" And we talked every day. He just, somehow he knew, like he's a giver, right? He gave me an opportunity. And I really apologize about this because I really can't do this. I just told Craig, I can't do this, but I'm going to try. Mike, he was just so great. He never, he just always took care of me. He invited me in, and then all of a sudden I'm talking to like Kevin Lenar, and I'm talking to different people, and they're like, "So, how did you get in here?" Everybody in town wants to get in here to teach. You know Mike from 20 years ago, you're his old friend. I said, "No," I sent him a letter. I said, "I'm down on my luck. I've been in these bands. Here's some records I played on, la la la." And so he said, "Come on, in." I get into town. He goes,
hey, we're moving over to another shop on De La Vina. I got a studio for you. I was like, oh, this is great. But I mean, for me, this was a low point of my life. And I'm just trying to expound on Mike being the giver that he is. Because he didn't even know me. I sent him a couple of tapes and a little letter. And he somehow took me under his wing. He gave me a studio, 12 years. I got to meet all these great people. Yeah, I'm just so blessed. I mean, it's like 25% of my adult life I worked there. You know, people are saying to me, oh, you can go to Mike's Memorial? Of course I'm going to Mike's Memorial.
Where'd you come from?
I love the guy.
Florida.
Yeah, man, I came from Naples, Florida. I left at 5:30 a.m. Yesterday, I got here at 7 p.m. last night, but I wouldn't trade this for the world. Mike, love it. Yeah, Mike was so great to me. He just did it. He changed my life. I got 2 degrees while I taught in Mike's drum shop. I met all these beautiful people, a lot of friends, and family and students, and people that are here today. And it's great. And Charlene, I just got to see you and Mike in Texas a few years ago, and it was awesome. It was like the old days. I'm still going around. Mike wasn't doing that great, but he was good enough to go to Guitar Center. He's telling me, I'm doing the best I can, but I had a cake. I came in, I spun around, and I sat on it. It was, it's not good. I got to cut the walking down. Well, you know what? It was it was so good, and I apologize to him for anything that I did that was bad at the end or whatever. I just said, Mike, you gave me an opportunity that changed my life. And I love the guy. And I think we're all here because we love Mike.
Hello. I worked for Mike for 32 years. I met him when I was 14 years old and took lessons with him all through junior high and high school. And then by the time I think I just graduated high school, he says to me, you might as well work here. You might as well work here. You're here all the time. And I started working for Mike. I was, I think, 18, and then I think I left when I was 52. So at the time I thought, screw college, I got the best job. What the hell? So I got to play drums and get paid for it and meet really cool people. So, and plus Mike was also a giver, and he wore pants at my wedding. And I was shocked because in the back of my mind I thought, oh, guy's gonna come in shorts. But no, he looked like a slave to fashion. He looked great, and I love him like a father. Many times he was like a second dad to me, and shared a lot of stories and a lot of laughs. And I'm gonna miss you, Mike, and I love you. So.
Anybody else? Okay.
Actually, can I say something real quick?
Yes, you can. Absolutely.
I'm gonna get on the train talking about how great Mike was, because everybody knows already.
Hey there. So I don't know many people in this room, but I know the family, or I'm just getting to know them a little bit. I flew in from Berlin for this event, so I got you. No, it's not about me. I just want to point it over there to you, Buddy Fink, that I got the distance key on you, pal. So we actually had, my father's back here in the room too, and I have been living in Europe for about 20 years. And I never thought, I did live in California when I was younger, from about age 2 to 5. And I didn't know if I would ever come back here to hang out with my father and take a road trip. My dad raised me. I lost my mom when I was a little kid. And we moved to Santa Barbara with no money, which is not a good idea at any stage. However, we just met. My dad flew in from Boston, flew in from Berlin for this occasion, and oddly enough, we're staying at a Marriott in Goleta. And when we got out there, it just so happened that my dad kind of said, "Hey, those are the Sesame Tree apartments. Those are the one-room apartments that we lived in when we first moved to Santa Barbara." So it's tough. Any single parent knows how hard it is to raise a child if you have to work, especially in America, hold 2 jobs, 3 jobs, find insurance, etc. And we were walking down Figueroa one day, and we heard drums. And I guess, how old was I, Dad? 2. Okay, I was 2. So I was actually walking and typing. I guess I was 2 at the time. My dad took me in, heard the sound of drums, and like I said about a single parent, it's a very difficult thing if you have to raise a child and figure out how to survive at the same time. So my dad took me in there, and was it 2 or was it 3 at that point? I was pretty young.
2.5.
2.5. Okay. So, right, just to verify for any questions later in the evening. And so he took me in there, and at a very young age, I mean, these memories become visceral. We say that children forget things before age 5 that they don't really remember. I have extremely vivid, visceral memories of being in that shop. And preschool for me was Mike's drum shop. At one point, my dad said, "Hey, I guess you get to know Mike somehow." And Mike said, "Well, you can just leave the boy here. You can leave him hanging out in the shop. And you gotta go to work. You gotta find a job. You can do, you can go and do whatever you want to do." So, forgive me, guys, if I go. It's not bad. And so the thing is, I had lost my mother when I was a baby, and this was, of course, my father was extremely protective. Don't talk to strangers. There was a spate of disappearance and kidnapped kids at this stage in the late 70s. And he let me stay in Mike's drum shop every day before kindergarten. And Mike took me on as my teacher, and we would go into that back room in Figueroa, and I'd get the 1, 2, 3, 4, the art of syncopation, and I still have the original book with the X's and the dots and whatever that means now, I don't know. But Mike was my drum teacher, and in many ways my second father. And so we can all come up here and talk about how great the man was. I am the last person that has the right to tell you that, because everybody has their own experience of his shorts, his pants, his thick glasses, and what an overarching, huge human being he was. I mean, his love was colossal, and that it's so sweet to come here and see everybody just feeling that. So for me, the tough part was that, of course, I had known about Mike's illness, and all these years later, I was very, very fortunate to continue to play drums. I got the summa cum laude, the multiple degrees, upper academia, the whole thing, and always put music on the back burner, but I continued to play drums. And Mike was always my teacher. So if anybody ever asked me throughout the course of my life, like, "Oh, where'd you take lessons?" Mike's drum shop. That's it. I have the original cymbal bag that still has the old logo on it, and he was my teacher. I may have taken 1 or 2 lessons after Mike, but actually after age 5, that was it. I was on the road. So for many, and the beautiful thing is, I spent so many years touring and traveling, and I wanted to go back to see him after he relocated to Texas. And it's hard when you get to a point where you know there's somebody that you have to see, who is physically deteriorating, who is mentally so ever-present for so many people, and then you get the call that he's passed away, and you didn't make it on time. So that's really hard for me to deal with personally. On the flip side, I was very, very lucky to join a show called Blue Man Group. I became a Blue Man. I traveled the world, toured the world for 12 years, everywhere, from Brazil, playing for 100,000 people with really famous artists, to small clubs, to cabaret-style, salon-style gatherings. And I still do this. Mike remains that teacher. And at one point, I was on the road. I now live in Berlin. At one point, I was on the road, and I had a guy look down and he goes, "Mike's drum shop? You knew Mike?" and to that, there's the ... at the end of the sentence, because that's the type of guy Mike is. And like I said, you don't need to say what type of guy he is. We all know this. But his presence is everywhere. It is global. And that was not the first or the last guy that said, "Whoa, Mike's drum shop." So I carry that bag. He remains my teacher, as my father. And bless you guys. This is awesome.
Okay. I guess I feel like saying what I think we all feel. I'll just say that a lot of times when we talk about spiritual life, sometimes the images of somebody far away finding peace on a mountaintop or a spa or something. But I just think of Mike's life, the people he inspired, protected, loved, gave chances, taught life lessons to, gave the gift of music to. What extraordinarily, excessively generous life Mike lived. And so I just want to say a prayer of gratitude. Oh Lord, we thank you for giving the world Mike Ray, for the personality that you created in him, for the gift and love of music that you gave him, and the way he's used it to spread love and hope and joy and laughter, goodness, all around the world. Pray that he'll be an example to us to trust people, give people chances, think the best of people, inspire people, live with joy, find our gifts, share them. Thank you again for all that he did as a husband, as a father, as a grandfather, as a brother, as an inspiration, and a child of yours. All this we give you thanks in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so I'm sure there's lots of food left. Family's there to greet. Continue sharing stories with one another. What a privilege it is.